Last few minutes of an attack near the illegal Israeli settlement of Dolov, where a Palestinian gunman was shot dead, neutralized, that's Israeli army speak for shot dead, at that checkpoint, at Dolov. The Palestinian Red Crescent says their ambulance carrying a Palestinian was not allowed across a checkpoint. So multiple in occupied West Bank, which goes to show you how tense this place is. But there is a complication when it comes to the occupied West Bank. The National Defense Minister of Israel, Itamar Ben-Gvir, is a settler himself. He is angry right now, allegedly, from various sources that we've been speaking to, that he's not part of the Israeli war cabinet. Remember, he's the National Defense Minister. It's very unusual for that to happen. So he is allegedly calling on his settler supporters to attack Palestinians. The attack in Kusra overnight was allegedly something that he had actually called for. Again, we can't confirm that. But he's also always said that settlers should defend themselves, that they should attack Palestinians if they're attacked. Now, if that happens, if he does publicly call for settlers en masse to go and attack Palestinians, and Israel has a huge problem. There are only 12,000 Israeli soldiers within the occupied West Bank. They have to control 3.2 million Palestinians and defend 450,000 Israeli settlers, most of whom are heavily armed, most of whom are ideological and will listen to Itamar Ben-Gvir. So that's now a very real concern amongst Palestinians and the international community.
And Imran, as we've been reporting for the last 40 minutes or so, the Palestinian president is expected to meet the US Secretary of State, certainly at a time of such heightened tensions. How productive can we expect that meeting to be?
Well, we know for sure from various international diplomatic sources who've told me that they want Mahmoud Abbas to issue a very clear condemnation of Hamas. That's what they're looking for. Are they going to get that? It's unlikely that they'll get the clearest condemnation. There'll be some sort of diplomatic language used. We don't know what that's going to be. But Mahmoud Abbas, all he has to do is look out on the streets, even of Ramallah, and he'll see the popular support that Hamas has right now. Throughout the day in the square that I'm just pointing to, there are protests ongoing. They're very small, but they're very, very regular, of people coming out in support of Hamas. So Mahmoud Abbas might not be able to give that clear condemnation. He might not want to give a clear condemnation. He's already condemned the Israelis for their actions, and he says the international community is also at fault here. The other thing he's going to be looking for in this meeting is the opening of the Rafah border crossing in Egypt, which leads into the Gaza Strip, for humanitarian aid and to get foreign nationals out. That's something that he's been trying to negotiate for a number of days now, but the Israelis have bombed Rafah 3 times in the last few days. That's a message saying to Egypt, saying we don't want this crossing open. He is going to try and put pressure on Antony Blinken to put pressure on the Israelis to open up Rafah. Whether he's got any cards to play is something that remains to be seen.
OK, thanks so much for bringing us up to speed. Imran Khan there in occupied West Bank. Israeli forces are maintaining the closure of checkpoints across the occupied West Bank, restricting all Palestinian movement. Nida Ibrahim is at one of them.
Even before the current war, the restriction on Palestinian movement has been heavily enforced by Israeli forces. We're talking about more than 645 Israeli military checkpoints documented by the UN in August. But now we are heading towards a total isolation, with checkpoints like this one behind me. And as you can see, the soldiers are coming in, are restricting and preventing really Palestinians from moving from one city to another. Even those who have tried to find other roads to go from one place to another because they have to, are facing another risk, which is the Israeli settlers and their increasing violence. In Kusra, this morning, Israeli settlers have stopped a convoy of Palestinian mourners, taking the bodies of 4 Palestinians for burial after they were killed in confrontations with Israeli settlers. 1 man and his son were killed.
These settlers attacked the bodies of the martyrs while they were being carried in the ambulances. Our people defended the martyrs' bodies. My brother Ibrahim and his son Ahmed were both killed. Let the hypocritical world see who they're defending.
Another man in Qalqilia to the north of the occupied West Bank says he has been kidnapped by settlers wearing Israeli military uniform under the threat of arms. He's been taken to an illegal Israeli settlement before his family told us that he has been released after they contacted the authorities. Let me show you how close Israeli settlements are to Palestinian homes. This is a Palestinian home. And just if we walk a few meters, we'll see the illegal Israeli settlement of Sagot. And often settlers attack Palestinians here. And Palestinians tell us that they've been emboldened by the current Israeli government and by the expansion of them and the growing number of settlers. Nida Ibrahim, Al Jazeera, the occupied West Bank.
The UN is warning Gaza faces a looming water crisis in addition to a total power blackout. Israel's energy minister posted this on the social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter. He said, no electrical switch will be turned on, no water hydrant will be opened, and no fuel truck will enter Gaza until the Israeli abductees are returned. No one will preach morals to us. Earlier, my colleague Tom McRae spoke to Jennifer Austin, who is the Deputy Director of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees in Gaza. She explains just how dire the situation is.
It is exhausting, but it's more exhausting for the staff of the UNRWA who are working tirelessly to provide services to the refugees. And I think I heard earlier in your earlier speaker talking about our schools, our shelters, that we've got 270,000 IDPs are in our shelters. And yeah, we are really stretched. Our emergency response plans cater for 150,000. Clearly, like after a few days, and we're now into day 6, we've almost exhausted all our supplies. It's extremely, extremely difficult.
Yeah, we know many people and organisations are calling for a safe passage to allow civilians to get out of Gaza, but also allow aid and supplies in. And I know that you're clearly one of them. Who were you talking to about trying to get a safe passage open?
Well, that's not part of the UN plan, because that sits outside of the UNRWA. But I'm not sure this is part of the WHO's plan, I guess. But what we're doing is we're trying to mobilise fuel resources that we can get available. We need to have fuel. Fuel into Gaza is the most critical, because fuel is running the desalination plants, so we can get clean drinking water. Fuel is running the generators for the hospitals. Without fuel, Gaza is in really big trouble.
How, you personally and your teams there, how long will you be able to operate? Because obviously you're suffering like everyone else in Gaza at this point in time.
Well, our Commissioner General has been working tirelessly at the highest levels, up to the Secretary General. I'm sure that everyone is doing all the advocacy needed, working with Egypt, trying to get safe passage through Egypt. Egypt and Rafah seems to be the only available option at the moment.
As Israel continues to bombard Gaza from the sky, it's massing a huge military force on the border. Since Saturday's surprise attacks by Hamas, the Israeli military has called up more than 300,000 reservists. The Chief of Staff has vowed to dismantle Hamas's leadership. Israel has one of the world's most powerful militaries with advanced surveillance systems and weapons. It also receives more than $3 billion in US military aid every year. Israel has developed its own mobile air defence system, the Iron Dome, with financing from the US. There are more than 169,000 active Israeli military personnel and 465,000 reservists. Israel has significant land power with more than 2,000 tanks and hundreds of artillery units. Its arsenal also includes 339 combat-capable aircraft, including fighter jets. Elias Hanna is a retired Lebanese general and a military analyst. He says launching a ground offensive inside Gaza will be a difficult operation.
They have to be worried, but they have chosen to go into the offense because this is the first time they waged offensive campaign inside occupied Palestine, which is the first time, because now they are measuring their success that they are going into occupied land and they're fighting, and they were preparing and planning to stay and fight in the near abroad of Gaza. However, they have really they have to calculate, different scenario, because when you go to war, you plan for the worst case scenario and you hope for the best. So they have had in their mind that at one time they have to withdraw to Gaza and waiting for maybe big operation, land the invasion for Gaza. So they have to be prepared for that, as far as logistics is concerned, as far as tactics is concerned, and at bringing and pulling the Israeli IDF into Gaza. It's like something very dangerous for Israel.
Let's get a sense of the geography of Gaza. It's home to more than 2.3 million Palestinians and has been under an Israeli blockade since 2007. Now, with Israel's total siege, they're trapped in the enclave with nowhere to go and nowhere out. Israel had already shut 2 border crossings on Monday, and its forces have been attacking the Rafah crossing with Egypt. Israel destroyed Gaza's only airport back in 2001. The Strip is divided into 5 areas. All of them have come under attack, flattening entire neighbourhoods. Most of the population is refugees and live in camps. The 20 hospitals and health facilities are struggling to cope with the number of injured people seeking help or needing operation. Intensive care units are full. Abir Atifa is a senior spokesperson for the Middle East at the World Food Programme. She says supplies are running desperately low.
The situation is quite severe. The conflict has severely disrupted food production and the distribution networks in Gaza and in the West Bank. With the borders closed, Gaza is on the brink of running out of food, water and electricity. Half of the shops that we are monitoring inside Gaza have reported that they might run out of food in 2 days. Others have stocks for less than a week. Out of 5 mills inside Gaza, only 1 is still operational, which means that the production of bread is being impacted. So also in the West Bank, shops are running out of supplies. The electricity cuts is bringing the threat of spoiling food. The only power plant in Gaza is running out of fuel. So we do have a lot of risks, especially that we are unable, even on the humanitarian side, to replenish our food stocks. Our warehouses are really running low because we're distributing food on a daily basis. Today, we have reached up till now 380,000 people, whether it is with ready-to-eat food in the UN-run shelters or by the distribution of vouchers for some of the families outside so they can go to the stores and have whatever is left of the stocks in the sites in these stores.
Now, Israel has confirmed it is responsible for 2 simultaneous attacks in Syria. One targeted Aleppo International Airport, that's currently out of service. The other hit the capital, Damascus. Our correspondent, Ali Hashim, has more from the Lebanon-Israel border.
We have reports of several missiles that has been launched from the Lebanese borders towards Israel. So this is what we have, and we will follow up on this maybe for more details. Now, with respect to what happened in Damascus and Aleppo, Israeli airplanes hit both the airports in Damascus and Aleppo, and now both airports are out of service. According to Israeli military spokesperson, this attack comes as a retaliation to several shells that were launched from the Syrian border towards Israel. And also he said that there are going to be more strikes on targets in Syria. Now, this comes as the Iranian foreign minister was preparing to land in Syria. However, the airstrike on the Damascus International Airport forced the Iranian foreign minister to change his route.
And we have some live pictures now from Charles de Gaulle's airport in Paris, where a plane carrying French nationals has just arrived from Tel Aviv. You can see some of the passengers speaking to the media, many arriving with family members and are looking slightly weary. It comes after 6 days of war between Israel and Gaza. Meanwhile, many people are struggling to leave Israel as airlines continue to suspend flights over security concerns. Willem Marx is at Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv.
Rockets have been targeting Ben Gurion International Airport in Tel Aviv since the start of this conflict. And over the past few days, tens of thousands of passengers have sought to escape Israel through flights. You can see the number of passengers here today. Those at the front of this line telling me it's taking up to 2 hours for them just to check in, let alone get through security. Dozens of airlines suspending or cancelling their flights over the course of this past week, particularly when rocket fire has targeted the airport. And as you can see today, the departures board just here, absolutely extraordinary. The numbers of delayed and cancelled flight passengers telling us they're really very, very desperate to leave. Many of them, though, struggling to get hold of tickets, waiting hours in the airport, and then eventually getting on their planes out of Tel Aviv. Willem Marx, Al Jazeera, Tel Aviv, Israel.
OK, that's it for me, Emily Angren, for this news bulletin. But before we leave you, we have some pictures coming out of Gaza and a warning these are distressing images we're about to show. I'll be back in a few moments with more of the day's news. Stay with us.